Good evening, everybody. First off, allow me to begin by saying it's both a privilege and an honor for me to be here. Nick called me a couple months ago and he said, Andre, we'd like you to consider being our distinguished guest for the Man for Others dinner. And I was excited. I said, man, I'm all over it. I'm in. Say no more, I'm there. And got off the phone with him, and I realized I forgot to ask him who the keynote speaker was. So, lo and behold, a couple weeks later, I get a letter in the mail. I go to the mailbox, and I open it up, and it says, thank you for accepting our invitation to be our keynote speaker. Lo and behold, I pretty much fell off my chair, because I had no idea it was me, but I'm honestly so honored to be here, see a lot of familiar faces. When I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about tonight, I was thinking, I could tell them about my experiences at Stanford, had an opportunity to play on national TV, play in 3 bowl games, played for Bill Walsh, who's a Super Bowl winningest coach in the NFL history. And I thought, no, I'm not going to talk about that. I said, maybe I can talk about my experiences at the 49ers when I went there for camp. I was catching passes from Steve Young, right next to Jerry Rice and Terrell Owens in the huddle. And I was like, I want to talk about that. And I thought I could talk about my time in the Canadian Football League, winning a Grey Cup. It was actually 1, but thanks for the 2. I wish I didn't have for 8 years, and had a chance to catch passes from Doug Flutie. And it's funny because I was going to talk about this ring and how it somewhat costs more than some small little cars. But when people see this ring and they see the diamonds and they see the gold, they think about the worldly possessions. And they think about the diamonds and the bling. But when I see this ring, I think about the blood and the sweat and the tears that took me to get there to accomplish this. And I tell people all the time, if this was all my life boiled down to, I would gladly throw this ring into the ocean. But I'm not surprised by that, because we live in a society that stresses the importance of worldly things. Pats on the back, recognition. And that's not what my life stands for. And so when I was truly thinking about what I wanted to talk about tonight, I realized there's no facet of my life that has not been touched by my time at Jesuit High School. And I truly mean that. And the older I get, I've come to the conclusion that it kind of parallels my life at Jesuit as a young Christian, parallels my life as a young man in the house, in the home. So how many of you guys, when you were younger, you were a little boy, a little kid, were scared of your parents? You had fear of your father or your mother? That's the answer. Come on, be honest. Well, I was that kid. I lived my life because I was afraid of the consequences. I was a good kid, but I was almost one of those scared straight kids, where I was always trying to do the right thing, but it was because I was terrified of my parents. And I knew that actions had consequences. But the older I got, I realized that I shouldn't fear my parents. I really wanted to, it was really respect. I didn't understand that until I was a little bit older, maybe junior high and high school. And that was respect because I understood the role that they played in my life and the sacrifices they made for me to get to the places that I had gotten to. And as I started to get a little bit older, towards the end of high school and college, that respect turned into honor. And I realized that, anytime I step on the field and that Kirwan name is on my jersey, that I was a direct extension of my family and that name. And I was the one who was going to carry on that legacy. So that was really something that stuck with me, and I understood that I went from fear to respect to honor. As a young Christian guy at Jesuit, it's the same thing. I came to Jesuit as a Christian, and I already accepted the Lord in my life. But like I said, I was living my life according to ethics, morals, and values. And it was one of those things where I understood that I was at Jesuit living my life as a Christian in fear of God, in fear of the ramifications of not being a good person. So I found myself always striving to be a good person. But it was at Jesuit where I kind of had that pivotal moment where I understood that it wasn't fear. I mean, the Bible calls us to be fearful of God, but it was a respect. And Jesuit really taught me that it was a respect for my fellow man and for fellow God, or for God, that I should be doing the right things and being a good person. Okay, it wasn't according to ethics, morals, and values. God wanted more. And I call that conviction. Once I had that conviction in my heart, which happened at Jesuit, I understood that I was trying to be a good person for Andre. But in thinking about God and the role he was playing in my life, I realized that I should be a better person to help others and give my life to other people. So I went from fearing God to respecting God to now I was understanding that, and Jesuit taught me this, it was now about honoring God. So it went from fear, respect, to now honor. And as once that light bulb went off in my head, I realized how much of a passion I had for younger demographics, especially teens. I look around this room and it's so amazing to be here because there's a lot of, it's family. And Jesuit understands, that's one of the things that you guys will understand a lot when you leave here. But this is family. And I found a passion for people in generations lost that didn't have the role models that you have sitting right next to you in these seats. And there's a lot of them. But that was what Jesuit taught me. So after I left Jesuit, it's like that light bulb went off in my head where Men for Others really took on a new meaning. Because I realized that not everybody has the role models and the influences in their household as you guys do today. So when I went to Stanford, I ended up founding a Bible study for the team. And then I ended up getting involved with Athletes in Action and Fellowship with Christian Athletes. And that's really where I understood the importance of giving back to younger demographics and younger generations. And everything I did, I tried to stand in the gap for people that were lost and didn't have, like I said before, those role models in your life. As I went on to play pro, it's the same thing. And now I had a platform where I could give back even more because I had a little bit of money in my pocket. And every week I was out speaking to the community, whether it be churches, kindergartens, prisons, detention centers, you name it, I was there. You just had to ask me and I would go. But I realized that Jesuit taught me that I have a passion for giving back. And God had wired my heart to give back. So kind of to fast forward, Kevin covered a lot of it, but I'm on the board of directors for the YMCA Communities Initiative. That's the Sulphur Springs Initiative. For those of you that don't know Sulphur Springs, it's the highest crime-ridden area in Tampa. Also, what we're doing is we're going in there, we're trying to build up young leaders and people to understand that it's going to take people within that community to raise up and really take hold of that and to change it. I'm also, as he mentioned, the president for the Work Done Charities. This man's a millionaire. He could be just fading off in the sunset and just hanging out, but his mother, I'm not sure if many of you guys know Work Done. A lot of you guys are younger, you might not even know who he is, but he played in the NFL for about 14 years for the Bucks and the Falcons. And then his mother was shot and killed in the line of duty as a Baton Rouge police officer. And his whole life mission, one of her dreams was to realize the privilege of home ownership, but she was never able to do that. So Ward's mission to the day he dies is to give that dream to other people through his mother's legacy. So spending your time around people like that, and that's my shameless plug for all the fathers in here that you guys want to give to the charity, then that's a great one to do that. But it's just about giving back to other people. And like right now, the one I want to talk about mainly is my homeless ministry, No Strings Attached. And once again, this ministry has gotten a ton of press lately. Newspapers, TV, you name it, awards, and kind of like the ring. Those are nice and they're special, but just kind of like there's a double meaning of this ring. You guys might see the diamonds and the gold, and I see the blood, sweat, and tears. It's the same thing with my homeless ministry. Those pats on the back, they're nice, but that's not what my heart's about. It's about the stories that I get to leave with that are deep in my heart while I'm out in the streets. And I want to share a couple of those with you. About 3 years ago, I try not to get emotional, but about 3 years ago, the gentleman, we were out on the streets, a lot of you guys were there, and he said, do you have any underwear? I said, sure. He's like, I just want one pair. I said, sir, I'll give you 5. Gave him 5 pairs of underwear. He walked away. He came back about 10 minutes later, and he hugged me, and he grabbed me tight. I felt tears going down my neck. And I said, sir, are you okay? And he said, son, he called me son. He said, I haven't changed my underwear in 4.5 months. And he said, you have no idea what that does to a man's pride and a man's dignity. And he said, thank you for restoring my pride and my dignity today. Through a pair of underwear. The stuff that we change a couple times a day. To think that this man had not changed underwear in 4.5 months broke my heart. Happier story, a gentleman named Keith Stevens. About year 3, it's Thanksgiving, we're out there. He was across the street on the curb. He was just sitting there and didn't take anything, didn't say anything. I locked eyes with him across the grounds. And God said, go over there and talk to him. So I went over there, I sat next to him on the curb. And I said, what's going on? He said, I'm tired, I'm broken, I'm dejected, I can't fight anymore. I'm sick of fighting. God told me to give him my card. I'm not sure why, but I wrote my cell phone number out. I gave it to him. Didn't even know why. I was just listening to God. And I said, if you ever need me, call me. He called me about 3 weeks later. And he explained to me his story. He had gotten caught into identity theft. And somebody had stolen his identity. And he was having a hard time proving who he was. So he told me that. He's like, look, I'm owed back disability and Social Security. But because I can't prove who I am through this identity theft, I can't get access to it. I said, well, let me see what I can do. He gave me all of his personal information. He gave me his social security number. And I said, I'll get back to you. I said, but I can't call you. You're going to have to call me. So he called me about a week later, and I called the Social Security office and the disabilities office, and sure enough, he was owed money. And I contacted a friend of mine who was an attorney, and I was able to become his legal payee. Well, lo and behold, within a week and a half, 2 weeks, I had a check wired into my bank account for $25,000. Now, if you can imagine, I was so amazed by that, because here this man